Buying industrial land is a decision that shapes a manufacturing facility for the next 20 to 40 years. Once construction starts and utilities are connected, changing the location is no longer practical. A poor site choice usually does not create immediate problems. Instead, it leads to higher costs and operational challenges over time.
Site selection is one of the highest impact decisions in any industrial project. A structured site study typically costs a few lakhs, but the investment it helps protect can run into hundreds of crores. That is why site selection should be treated as a disciplined process, not a formality.
The first evaluation factor includes the location and market accessibility of the land. This includes proximity to customers, raw materials, ports, and skilled labor. Export-oriented manufacturers often benefit from being close to major ports and freight corridors. Manufacturers serving the domestic market are usually better positioned near large metropolitan areas.
Established manufacturing hubs such as Pune, Chennai, and Ahmedabad offer access to large pools of skilled workers. Emerging industrial clusters like Coimbatore, Nasik, and Indore often provide a good balance of labor availability and lower costs. Remote locations can also work, but they usually require additional support such as transport facilities or incentives to attract workers. It is also important to consider industrial corridors. Sites within these corridors often have ready infrastructure in place. This speeds up project execution and can reduce development time by several months.
The second factor is land title and legal due diligence. A proper title check verifies the ownership history, typically going back around 30 years through registered documents. It also compares land revenue records with the sale deed to identify any inconsistencies.
An incumbent certificate helps identify mortgages, liens, and any legal claims on the property. Searches across civil and revenue codes can uncover disputes that are still ongoing. Skipping these checks to save a few weeks can lead to years of legal issues later. The sale deed may appear clear. However, problems often become visible only after it is compared with land revenue and registration records.
The third factor is zoning, land use, and regulatory approvals. State town planning departments specify how each piece of land can be used. If the land is classified as agricultural, it must be converted to industrial use before construction can begin.
The land conversion process can take anywhere from 3 to 12 months depending on the state. After the conversion, manufacturers may also need approvals such as environmental clearance, consent to establish, and a factory license. Some industries, including pharmaceuticals and chemicals, require additional regulatory approvals. If zoning is not verified before purchasing the land, the site can remain unusable for months or even years.
The fourth factor is availability of utilities, including power, water, gas, and drainage. Reliable power supply depends on the nearest substation's capacity, the available voltage, and the existing load on the electricity network. Water availability depends on municipal supply and groundwater conditions in the area.
The cost of utilities depends heavily on the location. In a well developed industrial estate, utility infrastructure may account for just 2% to 5% of the total project cost. For an isolated greenfield site, the same infrastructure can cost 15% to 25%. That difference can determine whether or not a project is financially viable. Utility connection costs should always be assessed before purchasing the land, not afterwards.
The fifth factor is transportation and logistics connectivity. Easy access to national and state highways plays a major role in reducing day-to-day transportation costs. For industries that handle heavy or bulk materials, rail connectivity and access to dedicated freight corridors become even more important.
Sites located within 5 to 10 kilometers of a major highway generally offer lower transportation costs and better logistics efficiency. Export oriented manufacturers also benefit from being close to major ports and container depots. Access to nearby warehouses and third party logistics providers further reduces storage and distribution investment.
The sixth factor is environmental, geotechnical, and climate risk. Policies related to coastal regulation zones, wetlands, and environmentally sensitive areas can limit what can be built on a site. Areas with overexploited or critical groundwater levels may also face strict restrictions on water extraction.
A geotechnical survey typically costs only a few lakhs, but it can identify ground conditions before construction begins. Skipping this survey can lead to unexpected foundation work and increase civil construction costs by 10% to 30%. Seismic risk and flood risk also influence building design and long term insurance costs. Climate conditions such as extreme heat can affect worker productivity and increase cooling requirements.
The seventh factor is future expansion and long-term cost. A well-planned site should leave enough space for future growth, often by reserving land equal to 50% to 100% of the initial plot size. Utilities such as power, water, and drainage are also often designed with extra capacity to support future expansion. This helps avoid expensive upgrades and disruptions later.
The purchase price of the land is only one part of the total cost. Over a period of 20 to 30 years, utility, transportation, and operating costs often have a much bigger impact. A lower price site can end up costing more if it requires expensive utility connections and higher logistics costs. In many cases, a well developed industrial estate offers a lower total project cost over its lifetime, even if the land costs more. The final decision should be driven by the total cost of ownership, not by land price alone.
The right site selection protects your investment long before construction begins. IMARC Engineering helps manufacturers identify and evaluate the most suitable locations through a structured site selection process. Connect with us to find the right location for your next industrial project.